So on rent, first of all,
Yeah,
I think we need to recognize that the social rented sector has been allowed to shrink so much. The private rented sector has been allowed to grow so much that a great many people are priced out of owner occupation. They're in jobs where they simply do not ever have the ability to save enough money to buy a home, to put down a deposit on buying a home. Uh, they have no availability of social rented housing. There's just no chance that they're going to get
no,
social rented housing, uh, and the private rented sector is all they've got available to them. And not everybody, but a great many people in that situation are being fleeced. They're being charged exploitative rent levels, and we've allowed that to happen in a really unregulated way. I'm really pleased that we got the emergency rent freeze in place during the early part of the cost of living crisis, just after the invasion of Ukraine caused the energy price spike, which knocked onto food prices and everything, and that incredible sense of urgency there. Getting some emergency legislation was really positive. The rent controls that are coming in permanently, that are part of the new Housing Act that was just passed this year, sorry, we're in January now, past last year.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I do worry that they're not going to be robust enough, and they have been watered down by the government since we introduced them to Parliament. So that's that even in the most kind of high rent areas where rents are really out of control, even once you declare a rent control area, that will still mean rents rising above inflation,
yeah,
1% above inflation. So rents will continue to become less affordable. So I'm not convinced that we're going to get as much of a benefit. It will still be better than nothing. And it means that you
yeah,
won't see rents spiraling by 10, 15, 20%, which we're seeing in some
yeah,
places. But it could be better. It could be better. The second part of your question, though, is about numbers. It's about what are we building? And I
yeah,
think we have to ask about the kind of housing that we're building, not just about the numbers.
yeah,
Numbers are one important part of it, but they're not the only important part of it. This country, by which I mean Scotland and the rest of the UK, have a real serious problem going back decades that we allow the housing development to be determined by speculative investors. It's about whether the investors want to make a profit. It used to be the case in this country, and it still is in quite a few other European countries, that it's the social need that determines where
yeah,
housing is built and what kind of housing to build. A local authority would decide, okay, we want to parcel off this piece of land. We'll decide what kind of housing should be put on it, and we'll put that out to developers who want to make some money by building those homes. But the social need is what determines the type of housing that gets built,
right,
not maximizing the profit for investors.
okay,
And we've got it round the wrong way. We have a system that's about maximizing the profit for investors, and that results in homes getting built that are way out of reach of a great many
yeah,
people, even in the
yeah,
local area that it's being built in. But we're not seeing the kind of affordable, ordinary, kind of
no,
starter homes or,
yeah,
or young
no,
family homes getting built that people can genuinely afford. So I think we need to break down this artificial distinction that we've got between what the market provides and what we call social housing.
yeah, that's the thing because I've found I found it hard to get my head around the idea because they say that that this is not this is, our population is not increasing and in some ways it's decreasing, but we still need these thousands of new homes, and I've kind of struggled to get my head around that idea.
Well, we do need new homes, and one of the problems is also the age of our housing stock.
Yeah,
The reasons why a lot of other European countries have a more modern housing stock has a lot to do with housing that was destroyed during the Second World War.
right.
Uh, you know, places where all of that rebuilding had to happen. Um, this country has very old housing stock by comparison, simply because we've got so much of it from the kind of pre-1919 era. I
Right.
live in a perfectly decent Glasgow tenement, but in a lot of European cities, that type of housing would have been built much more recently, and to a higher energy performance standard. And again, you've got different factors that have led to that difference in the housing stock. So the need to build is partly about numbers, but it's also about the type of homes that we need to be living in the 21st
Yeah.
century. And the answer to that isn't always the type of homes that were being built at the beginning of the 20th century.
So I, I moved into this home just over a year ago, and I spent the best part of 2 years looking for somewhere to live.
Hmm.
And so I spent a lot of time looking at new builds as opposed to 70s builds, 30s builds, and I was very conscious of that. And the new builds are very different to what you used to get for your money. In the
Yeah.
60s and 70s, you would get a house, a garden, a driveway, a garage. And I'm very conscious that, it's all really high end houses that have driveways, garages, and it feels a bit like social engineering, like, only the more affluent people are expected to have cars or driveways, and so I wasn't overly impressed on the new builds, or selling the new builds that I could afford.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think coming from my part of the political spectrum, I'd be more likely to call it market failure than social engineering. But
Yeah.
yeah, the effect is the same. A lot of people don't have the choices available to them that they need. Whether that's about, it's something like accessibility as well. The last few years, I've been getting a touch of arthritis. Now, it's pretty mild. It's pretty manageable at the moment, but I expect it to get worse. So I've been thinking maybe I should be looking to move somewhere that's got level access, level entry, or a lift
Mm.
in the building or something. And again, if you were in a lot of other European cities, there'd be a huge amount of that kind of accommodation because it was built at a time when people were already starting to think about accessibility.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah.
we've got a huge amount of housing that was built when that just wasn't being thought about.
No. Obviously, accessibility is important to me, and one of the main drivers that made me want to move is,
Yeah.
I lived in a flat in Edinburgh for
Hmm.
20 years, and it was great. I lived in Morningside in Edinburgh, nothing not to like. But over recent it just got harder and harder and harder to get around Edinburgh by
Yeah.
car. And but I understand for the environmental lobby, but they seem to make no allowance for for the for for some people need cars. I need a car to get around, and not a lot of people need a car. And if you Google it, uh, there's a lot of letters in the press from disabled people similar to myself saying, this is not fair. It's I get it from the environmental point of view, but you need to strike a balance by, you know, letting some people get in my car. But that was a big factor that made me big, but not the only factor.